Welcome to a Northwest Teach. In a game of Northwest, players will be going on hikes, finding mementos, and completing their journal. Each step along the hike, players will find different things to note down. These mementos will go in their own private journal, and they can be a variety of things, including animals and bees, and maybe something else. So join me in the forest and let's explore.
How do you play Northwest? Well, you're going to get the game board. It has indentations here for the cubes, for the mementos. You're going to put it down and you're going to roll all the mementos and just put them randomly into all the slots. The game board all randomized and set up. Some sides will have a pine cone and some sides will not. In fact, all of the mementos have one face where a pine cone is showing. Totally natural. It's part of kind of the randomization of the game. Let's zoom in here so we can see a little bit more of the setup. We have mushrooms and ferns and sometimes bees and Sasquatch. Those all do different things in the game, but this is the starting setup for Northwest. Then each player is going to get their own personal journal, and in addition to that, the last person to most recently go on a hike is going to get the hiker pawn. You're also going to have 10 of these pine cone tokens off to the side. Starting with that player who most recently went on a hike, they are going to make that initial first move of the game, and it's different than all other turns. How it works is they're going to pick any mushroom token on the board. They're going to select it, they're going to take the hiker and put it in that spot that it was on. They're going to take that mushroom memento and put it in the northwest corner of the map. Make sure to keep the face the same, which is important because, as you can see, sometimes there is no pine cone. And this one did have a pine cone, which is great. So they're going to put it in the northwest spot. And then, because it had a pine cone, they're going to get a pine cone token. Now, I'll explain all the other turns in the game. Now it's the next player's turn, and how they move to collect their memento is they're going to look at what memento was taken by the previous player. So it was a mushroom token. So they are going to move the active hiker pawn depending on that memento. All the different mementos have different movement options. So looking at mushrooms, they move one in any direction. Because the previous player took a mushroom, the active player can move one orthogonally or one diagonally anywhere they want. So maybe they come over here and they take a fern, and again they have to put it in the northwest corner of their active journal. Say it's a two-player game and moving to the previous player who started the whole game. Since a fern was taken by the last player, they have to move like a fern, which is orthogonally up or down or left or right. So maybe they take a bee because there's a bee right there. If I lift the camera, look at it go. So maybe they're going to take a bee. And how a bee works is for the next player, bees move like a knight in chess. So the next player, if they wanted to take a turn, maybe they could go get that fern, maybe another mushroom, or coming down here, they could get fern, or maybe they want a maple leaf. So they're going to come over here and get a maple leaf. And how maple leaves move is similar to ferns, except they are going to be diagonal, as you can see here. So So maybe they take this maple leaf. And maybe the next player, because it was a maple leaf, takes this mushroom. And then maybe the next player, because it was a mushroom, they're going to move down and they're going to take this Bigfoot. Bigfoot's the last one to explain. And how Bigfoot works is you can move any direction orthogonal, as you can see by this symbol. So this player, they can take any of these or they can take any of these three. Flow like this is going to continue until players either fill up their board or there's no legal movement. If there's no mementos for a player on their turn, like for example, if the active player moves over here onto this fern, and then the next player on their turn, as you can see, because fern is up, down, left, right, see how these are both empty of mementos. If that ever happens, then the active player will remove the pawn from the board and then take any mushroom they want, and then play continues. If there is ever no mushroom, then that would be one of the ways the game can end. The other way the game ends is when all the players have filled up their own personal journals. So we talked about the movement of the hiker pawn and how previous players' mementos will change the active player's movement, but we didn't talk about scoring and we didn't talk about adding mementos to your own board. So let's go all the way back. Let's say this player got a B on their first turn and they, like we said a little bit at the start, would be putting their memento at the northwest corner of their board. Well, after that, on subsequent turns, when they add a memento, they do have to be touching their starting memento. So players are going to slowly bleed out from the northwest corner as they fill more and more their board. And just to clarify, when you're placing a memento, it has to be touching and it cannot be diagonal. So it can't go down here and it can't go here or here because of the diagonal, but every other place in this example is totally valid. So how does scoring work? Well, it all depends on your memento type. So mushrooms are just 1 point per mushroom. As you can see here, that would be 3 points. But the player with the most mushrooms amongst all the players will get half of their mushroom score added to their mushrooms. Maple leaves actually work similar to their movement. So remember how when you landed on a maple leaf spot, you got to move diagonals? Well, maple leaves really care about being next to other maple leaves. So in this situation, this maple leaf is worth 2 points because it's diagonal to another maple leaf. If it was like this, it'd be worth 0 because it's not diagonal to another maple leaf. But like this is now 2, and also this is now 2, which is great. And again, any alone maple leaf is worth 0, so these would both be 0. Ferns work similarly, and they move similarly. So remember how ferns were, when you take a fern, it moves up, down, left, right? Well, ferns score similarly. So in this case, this fern would be worth 2, that one's worth 2, but as you can see, this one alone over here is 0 because it's not near a fern. And in this case, that would be 0 and that would be 0 because they're diagonal. Bees are interesting because they want to be surrounded by unique symbols. And they must be completely surrounded either by an empty edge, just the edge of the sideboard, or by other mementos. And so a bee will get 1 point per unique symbol surrounding it that's not a bee. So this bee over here, it's surrounded by a bee, a fern, and a mushroom, so that's 2 points. And this bee here, since it's surrounded, it would be 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, and since we already counted that mushroom, just 3 points, and bees don't count. So this one is worth 3 points. And if there was this bee over here, that would be worth 0 because it's not completely surrounded. Last to explain are Bigfoots. Bigfoots, if they're all alone, are worth 5 points, which sounds so great. Let's get a bunch of Bigfoots. But if Bigfoots are next to each other, they are blocking each other, so they're not solitary, so that's actually 0 points for each. The interesting thing is, it's solitary, meaning you can have multiple Bigfoots score, they just can't be in line of sight or next to each other. So in this case, this would score 5 and this would score 5 because this Bigfoot doesn't see any other Bigfoots, and so does this one. See? No Bigfoots. And they're not next to each other diagonally. So this is both 5 point and 5 point, but in this case, oh no! They would be blocking each other because they can see each other diagonally. But this is totally safe. Last thing for the scoring are these pinecone tokens. They are worth 1 point each, but guess what else they can do? They are so much more than just 1 point each. They also let you move the hiker in more flexible ways. So let's go back to this very hyper-specific example here. Let's say a player had just taken this mushroom, which also had a pinecone, which is great. And so the next person, again, they can go like a mushroom, they can go all the way around here. But if they wanted to, maybe let's say they really wanted a bee, right? And so there's no bees here, but there is a bee right here. So they could, if they wanted to, move here and then spend a pine cone, because what a pine cone does is it lets you move one more additional space orthogonally, and then move that to here and grab this bee. So pine cones are worth points, but also flexibility if you wanted to move one more spot orthogonally. So that's Northwest.